All right, students, so welcome back. This is going to be kind of a part two of a lesson from a bunch of weeks ago now. We learned how to make and draw the structure of some basic three-dimensional shapes. And now we're going to talk about shading and lighting and how we can actually look at things that have three-dimensional shape and actually shade them correctly. Um, Yet again, it's all about our light source. Okay? And so for this, we're going to just imitate and basically make it up. And say the light's coming from the left side and above. Everything is about the light source when it comes to drawing three-dimensional objects, whether it's these simple shapes or human beings. Okay? And so what we're going to run through real quick in this lesson is we're going to take the cone and we're going to take the cylinder. We're going to talk about how to properly shade them. Okay? So the first thing is they're round, right? So the cone is round, the cylinder is round. And so no matter what, there's a roundness that has to come through when we draw these things. So if our light source is hitting on this side, we're going to get a highlight on our round object. But one of the most important things is this edge isn't going to be completely white. It's actually going to be and have a little bit of darkness as it wraps around. And then as we come out, we press a little less hard and it's going to hit our highlight eventually. Now, a cone is exactly triangular, right? As we look at it from straight on. So it's going to imitate the light in a triangular fashion. So I'm going to make the edge just slightly darker as I come in here. Okay? And then I'm going to leave this section white. And then yet again, it's going to be a triangular section as it comes up to the tip. And we'll start again with some very light shading. And we'll bring that over. As it now goes around and wraps around, we go to the side where light is no longer hitting it. And as we go and wrap around, it's going to get darker and darker and darker. And we're going to have a section that's right in here, this section. That's going to be really, really dark. Okay? But for now, add that all in. Okay, now I get to that section where it's going to be pretty dark. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to darken it considerably. Yet again, it's going to darken in kind of a triangular shape as it comes down to the bottom of our cone here. Okay, so take your time with this when you're doing this. Add a little bit, check it, add a little more, check it again. And that's how we get our change from dark to light. A change in value, it's called. Now, as we wrap around the last side, okay, it is not going to go completely dark to the edge most of the time. It kind of depends on what view you're looking at it, but it will be still have a slight blend on the edge to a lighter color. Okay, my darkest area in the front needs to be darker, and so I add more. And you just kind of keep adding more until it looks right. You'll be able to tell it'll look round to your eye. That kind of round shape. Okay. You can just use your pencil to make that kind of roundness, and you can even, in a lot of ways, you can use your finger to blend it, but you got to make sure you go the direction that it is when you blend, because if you try to use your finger and blend into it, and you go, for example, this way, you might get it wrong. All right, let's talk about shadows. So for our shadow, what we're going to do is we're going to look at, yet again, the direction of the light source. That's going to determine where our shadow is going to be. And generally speaking, our shadow is not necessarily the darkest part of whatever we're drawing three-dimensionally. It can be, and often there is one spot that is really the darkest spot. And it's always going to be opposite of the light, right on the bottom of the object. So right here is, as it wraps around, that's going to be your darkest spot. And it might just look like a black line on the bottom. And that's okay. You could draw it as such. It will wrap around here until it gets there. And then sometimes, depending on how hard the lighting is, it will come out a little bit farther like this. Okay? So, but the rest of the shadow, it's going to come out and it's going to make the cone shape. Okay? We're going to start right from where it's sitting, and it's still going to make that triangular cone shape. And since it's round, it'll start right here on the side and come out. Okay? Just like that. And then, yet again, it won't necessarily be the darkest, but it's probably going to match your dark shadow on the side of your cone. And then we can fill it in that way. Shadows often aren't very sharp. They can be somewhat fuzzy on the edges. Yet again, that depends on the light source. If it's a very heavy light source, you'll get a sharper shadow. If it's not as intense light source, you'll get a less dark shadow. Okay. All right. So there is the cone. Now you can use the same exact techniques on the cylinder. The only difference with the cylinder is it's got a top, okay? And that's really about it. Your shadow will be different because it is parallel on both sides, all right? So same idea. This edge isn't going to be white even though the light source is coming from it because of the roundness of the object. So you'll come in here. It's not going to be pure white here. You'll shade it a little bit. You'll bring it out slightly. Okay, and you want to be very light with this until then you get to the area of highlight. Okay, and that's just going to be white. But then we'll come back in on the other side and we'll go from light to the section that is opposite the light. Okay, be right in this area. It's going to be very dark, and then it'll blend back out and be round again. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this really quickly in comparison to the other one. So it might not be as good of a job, but I move the video along a little bit more. And yet again, you can always press lightly at first, then add more later to blend it properly. Remember, as I come back around, I'm going to press less and less and less until I get to this edge. Because it'll be dark, but it's still round, so you're going to have a little highlight on that edge. Alright, so now I got to darken up the space. This is where my darkest part away from the sunlight is. So I darken that up, and then I can blend out to give it that roundness. And notice, really important, I'm using the side of my pencil to blend it out. Really, really important. It gives you a lot more control. And you can add a little tiny bit of your pencil at a time this way as it blends it for you. Okay. All right, slightly darker right on that dark spot, but I think you get the idea. Okay, highlight, and then it blends into the darkness as it goes. All right, the top. The top often is going to be getting hit by light. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be just simply and completely like a flat gradient, okay? It'll get hit by light in an area here, and you can add some shading over here where the light's not quite hitting as much. Light might not be hitting as much here, but you'll have a spot where right here in the front where it's definitely going to be hitting the hardest. Okay, same thing, shadows for this. Dark line right underneath it, coming out ever so slightly. Okay, and that will basically run all the way underneath it, and then opposite of the light source. Okay, so come out straight. It'll come out straight.